We did end up having to reproject and sort of redo the chopsticks in CG as well.
Wait, wow.
The idea with this scene was we were gonna go like, okay, now we're gonna do what lasers really do.
She has the lightning and her hand is being lit up by that purple lightning.
Yeah.
What's the process on lighting her hand?
Big thanks to Puget Systems for sponsoring today's episode.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Visual Effects Artists React. We are honored to be joined on the couch once again by Stephan Fleet, the Visual Effects Supervisor of The Boys. Lots of you have probably seen it. It's, in my opinion, the best show currently that's airing. There's a lot of blood and gore and fun stuff, disturbing stuff.
Yeah, I have a feeling this episode is gonna be another bloody episode.
To me, I equate this right now to like a game of Operation where I have to like not get you guys demonetized. So be very careful with what I can and can't talk about. But there's some interesting stuff. We had a really fun time doing season 3 and, you know, some of the craziest, most unprecedented stuff I've ever been involved with in my life, and some stuff I can say that I don't think has ever been done before for television, which is pretty darn cool.
So I think I should state right off the bat, if you've watched the first episode of The Boys, we're not gonna look at that scene. We can't. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What do you want to start with?
Let's start with the opening. We call it the Dawn of the Seven opening.
That's right, yeah.
This is our movie within the show, Dawn of the Seven, and it's supposed to be like our homage to Mr. Zack Snyder, who actually saw and had some pleasant comments to say about it online, which is humbling to me. They built a pretty great set, like that bus and all that rubble, and a lot of the fire is real. We added the heat waves, distortion, a lot of smoke, more fire. But the most interesting thing about this scene is it was shot not only in 2 different places, but at 2 different times in Toronto and Los Angeles.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
But those are 2 different locations.
I know,
How?
I know. So essentially, while we filmed the Toronto side first, I went and I did a complete scan, actually, honestly, with Polycam on my phone.
Really?
Yeah. Polycam is my friend, man. I go around everything and just get like a Polycam backup or whatever. So I did a Polycam scan and I created a whole like time of day, sun map. I created this whole packet for the LA unit. I had to stay in Toronto, so we hired another soup to cover it.
Another soup?
Another soup.
Another VFX supervisor. And yeah, and then they hired a unit here and they recreated some like the fire truck with, you see like a parachute on it and stuff like that. So they recreated half the set here in LA and shot it much later. So what you're seeing is, you know, visual effects putting 2 things together.
Die, Untermensch.
And then we did some powers here, and we actually went a little cheesy and over the top with the powers. Usually we strip stuff back and kind of go more raw, but you know.
I had a question about a specific shot in that opening sequence.
Sure.
It was when Stormfront-ish,
Charlize Front, yeah.
Stormfake, she has the lightning and her hand is being lit up by that purple lightning.
Yeah.
A lot of the times for something like that, I would just do that in 2D. What's the process on lighting her hand?
I'm a big fan of practical lighting. However, in this instance, if you're shooting broad daylight, exterior, you're not going to get much out of throwing some LEDs on someone's hands, and it's going to slow down production, and you're always thinking about speed and time and stuff. If it's a dark room, I would say you need light, because that light's going to light up the room. You know, you're going to need some kind of reactive light. But again, daylight exterior. Also, she has black gloves on. They're more forgiving to light up. So in this case, we scanned the actress. They match moved her hand, and then all that reactive lighting was cast in CG.
You actually recreate a 3D model of her hand, and then you're actually lighting that in 3D space.
Yeah, so like instead of doing like a shadow catcher, which we talked about before, it's basically just the opposite.
So like a light
It's
catcher. And it works a lot of the time. It's definitely easier on production. And the truth is, if we can get away with a 2D or a 2.5D solution, we will. On a shot like this, there's actually a significant amount of parallax. The camera's panning and moving, so you do have some 3D depth there. If I don't have to, I don't manhandle a shot like this. This particular company is a company called Rising Sun Pictures in Australia. And you know, the artist was the one that was creative and found the way to cast that light on her hand that just looked great. And I didn't have to say much, to be honest. I got the shot, I'm like, this looks amazing.
You get the shot and your note is like, dope.
So if you think about it, like, it's just so crazy in this industry that you have like so many people contributing their creative and technical talents to something like this, that it's, you know, it's truly an international production, that one shot. You've got Toronto, LA, and Australia all coming together. I just think it's great.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is the first big bloody explosion of the episode.
Yeah. This was probably one of the hardest, most challenging bits to do.
I've somehow already forgotten that like his head doesn't blow up all at once.
Dude, the pool of blood in the back of his throat, where you can see him breathing.
That was one of the hardest shots because you're going into uncanny valley territory where you're staring at a human head at length with really no way out. This scene though was really hard. It took a long time. It took months to accomplish. There's definitely some real, but a lot of CG going on.
So what do you have going on there? So you have the actor, you probably have prosthetics, and is there like just a big, did you just paint his chin green?
It's a green. It's like kind of like the flaps down here are real, and then the eye had a little bit of green. We did a lot of work on the eye area, I think, and then obviously anything like the jaw and inside the mouth was CG. I mean, the whole point of the storytelling in this sequence is to see this guy gruesomely in pieces blow up. We had some great assistance. Zane is our practical prosthetics guy on the show, and he created this like fake half blown off hand. We kept the real hand sometimes, but we ended up actually replacing the hand in CG.
Are you guys sticklers about anatomy? Like, do you like go like, all right, well, we actually have a skull and meat and, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the word we like to use is grounded. We like to say we're a very grounded show, and we try and come at everything from a point of realism, and then at a certain point, you take it to this fantastic level. It really depends from shot to shot. So this, like, we're going big on this one. Like, we wanted to gross people out, and we wanted to, you know, make it painful and excruciating and long, and that's intentional. So I think you get to that point where you're like, oh, if we cheat this little piece here, or, you know, maybe it wouldn't exactly be this, but if we do this here, it's better for the shot. The key thing, again, for us is like, we never want people to stop and think about the visual effect. We always want people to just be into the moment in the story, at least the first time.
But wait a minute, this shot isn't over yet, though. This shot, though, is about to get bigger.
Now, I would call that like, I mean, it's really hard work, and we spend a lot of time on it. I've done a body explosion or two in my time now on The Boys. You know, it's your traditional Boys, good old body explosion. What's great is we have this special effects team, the Kenny family up in Toronto. They've been with us since season 1, and they'll always come out. And I always have them do a practical explosion. I think we talked about last season, called blood lollipops, whatever. But they'll always come out with some kind of blood bag and blow something up. It's always great to have that reference of like blood, and also like hitting people with it. And some of the mist coming over like Huey here, that's real. And then we extended it and we did it in visual effects over her to like keep the moment going.
What's the secret to making good-looking guts? Like, there's chunkiness to it, but like you also got to get the glossiness right.
Being season 3, we actually weirdly like just have our own language on the show. And these guys at Rocket Science, they did the head wedding, as it's called, last season. So we have this shorthand of like, we like our blood ropey, you know, we like our colons, you know, this shape and size. So it's always a balance between like how much mist versus like ropey blood versus chunky stuff. We tend to do less mist, if you'll notice in our stuff.
Yeah.
Mist usually comes from the practical elements, because when you do practical explosions like squibs and stuff like that, there's like a CO2 component that shoots out a mist. So when we're doing the visual effects side of it, we actually try and like pull back on the mist, knowing that that'll either be there from the practical or it just shouldn't be there at all. So
that's so funny, because when we're doing blood effects, we usually are adding that mist element ourselves.
yeah, and again, like every show I've done is different. For whatever reason on this show, the language we've built over the years is more of, again, like I would call it a ropey style of blood, where you see these sort of strands shooting up that they'll then disintegrate into raindrops at a certain point and some chunks.
You know, I find the color of blood to be one of the hardest things to get right, both in terms of making your fake blood and when you have to like do digital blood.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because looking at this shot, you see like the blood in a lot of cases is black.
Yeah, we go for a darker, more maroon, you know, mystic pumpkin. No, that's not
Mystic
right. That's too
pumpkin?
orange. No, it's like, but we definitely have our tone of blood. That's a note I give a lot. A lot of times I'll get the blood stuff in for the first couple rounds, and it'll be more bright red, which weirdly is actually more accurate to what real, you know, blood looks like. It's pretty candy apple real blood. But just like we have a heavy color grade on the show that gives it a lot of contrast and darkness, I think we have to lend ourselves to that. So yeah, so we go very dark. Even though it's not real, it adds a level of filmic realism to it, to me.
I mean, it's also like, that's where reference becomes really important, because seeing what happens to your stage blood once you run it through the color grade and everything, it's like, okay, you have to match those colors with all this arbitrary colors that you're just making up later on.
For sure.
It's not like there's a hex value for blood.
No, yeah. And I have seen a lot of reference on this show, guys. Let me tell you, like places that you don't want to go in life. But yeah, I would say this episode has some of our biggest and most unprecedented visual effects we've ever done for the show.
Hey, you know what? I think now's a really good time for you to hit this button. It's down there over the subscribe button.
Whoa, you know.
Down there. Yeah, it's yeah. Now you have to subscribe.
Getting a little personal there. Jeez. That way. Keep going, yeah.
You know, if you want to like see what we're up to. Cool video coming out tomorrow. Just saying. Subscribe.
Chef's specialty. It is a South Korean delicacy.
Oh, it's Timothy. Timothy the octopus.
This scene kind of broke me. It was hard to watch.
I'm so sorry.
Dude, I'm noticing like the tentacles are literally pulling on his face there.
Collaboration again with our practical effects team and a little bit of
Dude,
props
that ink.
too. There's a combination of things going on and even a little bit of puppeteering. So we had a full rubber Timothy and we used him as reference. So when you cut to the plate, we did a reference pass of him, but then we pulled him and we did a clean plate of a plate.
Clean plate.
I get to say
Got it. You finally got it.
Thank you, folks.
Oh, clean plate.
Thank you, folks. I'll leave.
I think
now.
is this the first? Is that the first clean plate on film?
So it starts with like we had the rubber thing, then like what's he gonna put in his mouth? So we ended up creating like a head, like a rubber head he could put in his mouth. But then when he's sucking them up, what's he gonna do to suck them up? So our props team took over at that point. That a food specialist create a vegan tentacle. Looked like a gummy worm kind of that he could suck up. It's the right size. Not the right texture. We had to skin over it, but it gave him, again, something tangible. Because you want those chopsticks to grab onto something. You can't airball that stuff. It's going to look like a nightmare.
And also, I assume something to inflate his cheeks from the inside.
Yeah,
somehow,
so
right?
he's inflating his cheeks with the real stuff, like the stuff filling his mouth. That's a good point. And then again, we had 2 pieces of string with tape on his cheeks, like pulling.
I noticed that immediately. Like the tentacles, like one on each side of his face. And his pulling, you can actually see like little wrinkles forming from skin being pulled like under his eye, like way far away from the effect.
Again, I was like, I knew this was going to be a tough one. I mean, I was like, this is not easy. This is not easy work. So we need to get as much real stuff as we can into the arena here. And then also, there's this ink that comes out of his mouth, and that's a lot of real ink too. They created in the head piece, they created like an ink balloon. That would allow him.
Boy.
And Chase, by the way, did a lot of tests and rehearsals with it.
So the fact that you didn't actually kill a real octopus,
Yeah.
PETA themselves were like, good on you, here's an award.
And it's kind of cool, man. Like the fact of the matter is, we never intended to use a real octopus in this sequence from the beginning. 1, because it's really complicated, but 2, like we would never want to, do that to an octopus.
Hey, have you seen Old Boy?
I've seen Old Boy. Oh, I believe me, I watched Old Boy a lot in referencing this scene, and that was, that's a film from another time. You just can't do something like that in this day and age, especially for American television. It's just a no-no. And then, one of the hardest things was getting the interaction of the chopsticks connected to the actual octopus, because when he was grabbing the thing, it was shaking a little bit more than we wanted. So we did end up having to reproject and sort of redo the chopsticks in CG as well.
Wow.
You just casually say that, oh yeah, we had to like redo the
It
chopsticks.
wasn't casual.
but, like,
It was quite difficult. It took them.
yeah, no, I
So
imagine.
you painted out the chopsticks in the shot, and now you have CG chopsticks.
Like something you could do in a situation like this if you had to is, since you have the real chopsticks there and you're always going to be this angle, you could take a frame of the real chopsticks, create a CG model of chopsticks, reanimate the movement, and then reproject that frame back onto it. Kind of like camera mapping, right? Camera projection, and it'll have a real texture to it. They're shiny, so you have to deal with lighting and movement and all that stuff. But
Yeah, that would be the challenge, is that like when you start projection mapping something back on, all of the highlights and lighting is baked in.
yeah, so we had to obviously handle that and put like a chrome texture on it. So this was an incredibly challenging shot. So I would say that the biggest thing is, from the get-go, the performance is really big. You tend to go cartoony with the character. Like you give him a personality. Timothy's like, whoa, and Eric was the one that kept saying like, peel it back, peel it back. What would a real octopus do? Like even when we opened the tray, I think our original shot had the head like sort of popping up and flapping down, and Eric's like, kill that. And it was such a smart thing to do, because really, in this instance, I think everyone knows that it's not real. Just because of the nature of the scene. You want it to look as real as possible in visual effects, and you do want to give it a performance, but you still kind of want to find that pocket of like real octopus, but with horror in its eyes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the thing that makes all of this work is the fact that little Timothy is like so cute.
It's the
Like
close-up of
the
his eyes, right?
the eyes. I'm like, I actually see like a soul behind those eyes, and it hurts to see that.
So, yeah, I mean, good. Then we achieved our goal.
I was watching this, and like the emotions are real, and I had to like pause and reflect on the fact like I'm watching a goofy superhero show, and it's hitting like this is a real intense drama. It's a dude eating an octopus while it talks to him. It's Aquaman having to eat a fish.
And he shared his tuna fish sandwich with me.
It's so funny, but at the same time, it's so serious and it hits and it lands. It's like, that's hard to do.
But yeah, I don't know, man. It was, I'm very, very, very proud of this sequence, as horrific as it is.
I mean, it's very well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's a really good scene.
You were my hero growing up.
This is kind of cool, man. So we finally did like a really big superhero fight. Soup v soup v soup.
I'm the upgrade.
A lot of wall hits.
Oh yeah, but it's about to get big.
Oi.
Oi!
Ooh.
And Homelander, who's never been like injured in his life, is like, what the?
And he's using his own tricks against him. Laser eyes versus laser eyes.
Oh, there it is.
That's the shot. That's the Colbert thing that they were making fun of the other night. Yeah. This was a very well-received scene, and it's exciting to me because we worked really hard on it. The very first shot you see back at the beginning of this, the actual shot where he flies and slams Soldier Boy up against the wall right there, that's a full digital double of Homelander.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, and then it cuts into a real shot, and it's a pretty clever wire thing.
Yeah, I was about to say, I remember
Yeah.
seeing an image of the behind the scenes of this moment, and there's a lot of wires holding them up.
Yeah. So that's that close up when they smash in. And John Koyama, props to him, man. He really mapped out the entire sequence, and he made wire pulls not feel like wire pulls. He was really good at communicating to me what he needed to do for wires and pads and stuff. So I was prepared ahead of time. It was some of the most sophisticated wire work I've seen in my career, and also some of the most unobtrusive. Like, I don't know how he did it. A lot of times you come in as a visual effects to a scene like this, and it's like you're shooting through spaghetti. There's just like wires everywhere, and you're like, oh boy. But we have to add the cape on anytime there's wires, because obviously the wires would conflict with the cape.
You know, I was actually gonna ask about the cape
Yeah.
because it's like, I saw him like go down, I'm like, oh, that's a real looking cape. Nice. I bet because of, you know, this is a show, you got a whole lot of stuff you gotta do, the cape is probably mostly real. And then you turn around and it's like, well, actually, anytime there's wire work, the cape's not real. And it's like,
Yeah.
that makes total sense.
It ends up
Okay.
being CG a fair amount of times. Anytime he's doing anything crazy, again, like wires or flying or anything like that, we're gonna pull the cape and go CG, because like you also kind of want to like be able to control the physics of it when he's flying, because that's a big tell for which way the wind's moving. And
By the way, speaking of wires, you may have noticed that we're not in our usual spot. The first time in 3 years of doing this show, we have not shot down there, and that's because we're filming our own wire stunt for a show that's going on the Netflix YouTube channel, Still Watching Netflix. The show's called Punch for Punch. We put a lot of love and effort into it. We're really proud of it. And the show premieres next weekend. We've been documenting the entire shooting, editing, and VFX process for each episode, and you can check all of that out on the crew cuts on our website. Follow along on our website, quarterdigital.com.
there's a funny story with the dual lasering. If you go back to that first scene we looked at with the Dawn of the Seven, the Zack Snyder thing, this was a symmetry thing when they're all blasting each other. And the whole point in this Zack Snyder thing was we were like, we're gonna do that thing that they do in Harry Potter where the two lasers hit each other.
Yep.
And you know, it's just like, we're kind of making fun of it, to be perfectly honest. And then the idea with this scene was we were gonna go like, okay, now we're gonna do what lasers would really do when they laser each other. So I did a lot of research. And what you learn is the lasers would go right through each other.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. It's light.
Yeah, it's light, so they would not smash in the middle. And so we tried that, and it looked like shit. So very quickly we were like, all right, we're just gonna do the thing where the two lasers meet in the middle, and it's gonna be rad, and it was. And you know, like all things on our show, I think our first version was probably bigger, and we toned it down and pulled it back because, you know, we want to find that balance for our show. So now I understand why people do this, and when they have their laser, their P laser battles.
Yes. More. Star Wars. More. No, that's okay. That's enough. You see, editing this React show takes a lot of time and effort and processing power, and we can only do it on a powerful computer. And that's why I wanted to tell you about the computers we use from Puget Systems. So what is a Puget? Well, it's a computer that's been specifically designed and tailored to meet your needs. They have a group of professionals that are on standby to find out what you need in a computer, and they will rigorously test their machines to make sure that it will not fail on you. I mean, think about it. A computer is the most important tool an artist uses, and you want to make sure that that tool is reliable. You don't want this computer breaking on you, and with the Puget Systems PC, you can rest easy knowing that this thing will not break on you. And on the off chance that something does happen, maybe you messed it up somehow, their customer support team will not even hesitate to try to help you all the way through it. Like legit though, their customer support team is great. I have had a problem before, it was my fault, but they didn't hesitate to help me through the entire process. At this point, all of us here at Corridor use Puget computers. It's really allowed us to level up our VFX workflow here. As you can see, Fenner here is working across 2 computers, rendering out hundreds of VFX shots for Son of a Dungeon Season 2. These things are great and reliable, and if you're interested in having that same level of rigorous testing and reliability, check the link down in the description or go to PugetSystems.com. Tell them Corridor sent you. They'll love to hear it. In the meantime, yeah, thanks for watching. Look at Niko. Star wipe, star wipe, star wipe, star wipe.
All right, we're talking about The Boys, obviously, and so gore plays heavily into that. What are some of your favorite gore visual effects from horror movies, regular movies, doesn't matter. I want to see some disturbing stuff. Visual effects, not special effects. Not practical, visual, digital. All right, please leave a comment below for any suggestions so we can pull them up in a future episode of the show. Stephan, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. The show is amazing. Thank you for putting so much blood, sweat, and tears, both digital and practical, into this amazing piece of entertainment. I can't wait to see more of it. For all of you out there, you should go follow Stephan on his Twitter and his Instagram. And you know, if you send him a message, he told me he'll personally respond to every single one.
I'm so sorry.
Oh boy, maybe, but I didn't say when though. It could be like August 2027, but I'll do my best. Thank you guys. It's always great coming here. You guys are awesome.
Hell yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy your next 9 months in Toronto.
Thank you. Yeah, winter. Woo. Yeah.